The alien died in his arms. Then she whispered a terrifying secret to every human soldier. The battlefield was quiet, but it was not the silence of peace. Smoke rose in slow black waves from the broken ground. Fires still burned where machines had fallen, their twisted metal glowing in the ashes. Human soldiers stood among the wreckage, their armor covered in dust and blood. Victory had been claimed, but no one felt victorious. Every man and woman knew that in war, silence always carried a shadow of what was lost. One soldier stood apart from the others. His name was Aaron Hale, a young man who had seen too much for his age. He had fought across ruined cities and barren fields, but this moment was different. In his arms he held a dying alien warrior, her body fragile and trembling, her blood dark against his hands. Her kind had been the enemy for years, the reason humans buried their own children under broken soil. Yet now, with her face pale and her breath weak, Aaron felt no triumph. He only felt the weight of death pressing close. Her eyes flickered open, glowing faintly even as the life inside her slipped away. She looked at him not with anger, not with hate, but with something else, something almost human. Aaron did not know why he stayed there, why he had not let her body fall to the ground like so many others. Perhaps it was the silence, or perhaps it was the strange way her hand had reached for him even in her last moments. The other soldiers watched from a distance, unsure. Some gripped their weapons tighter, ready to end the scene with one shot, but something in the air held them still. It was as if time itself waited. The alien moved her lips, trying to form words. Her voice was no longer strong, and Aaron leaned closer, his ear almost touching her mouth. Then it happened. What came out was not a whisper in the air. It was not sound that passed between her lips. Every human soldier on that battlefield felt it at the same moment. A voice soft but sharp as ice slipped into their minds. It was not just her voice, but something deeper, something that cut past language. Each man and woman froze as the same words echoed inside them, words that felt older than war, older than their own memories. Aaron's heart pounded as he heard it. The alien's dying whisper was not about defeat, not about surrender. It was a warning of something coming, something that would not stop at borders, planets, or species. The soldiers looked at each other, fear flashing in their eyes. These were not men who feared battle. They had marched through fire, lost brothers and sisters, and faced alien weapons that had torn cities apart. Yet this whisper filled them with something they did not understand. Their armor felt too heavy, their rifles useless in their hands. The alien's breath slowed. Her head rested against Aaron's chest as her final strength slipped away. But her last gift or curse remained. The secret she carried had been poured into every human soul present. She did not die in silence. She died with the power to turn victory into dread. Aaron lowered her body to the ground with care. His hands shook as he pulled away, as if touching her had tied him to something beyond his reach. He looked around at his fellow soldiers, expecting disbelief, expecting someone to laugh it off as stress, as madness. But their pale faces told him otherwise. They had all heard it. The commander pushed through the crowd, his voice sharp, demanding order. "What happened?" "Report!" he barked. But none of them spoke. No words seemed enough. The battlefield had shifted from war to mystery, from fire to shadow. Aaron opened his mouth, but before he could speak, another soldier shouted, "She spoke to me. She spoke to all of us." His voice cracked with fear. Another soldier yelled the same. Soon the entire unit was speaking at once, their voices trembling. Some cursed the alien. Others prayed under their breath. The commander silenced them, but even he could not hide the unease in his eyes. He had heard it too. Whatever the alien had done, it was not imagination. It was real, and it was dangerous. Night began to fall on the battlefield. The fires burned lower, but the fear burned brighter. Men who had stood fearless under gunfire now whispered among themselves, too afraid to close their eyes. Victory felt hollow. The war they thought they had won no longer seemed clear. Aaron sat alone, staring at the stars above. The alien's whisper replayed in his mind, a haunting echo that refused to fade. He had always believed humanity's greatest enemy was the alien army they fought. But now, holding the memory of her last breath, he was no longer sure. The silence around him grew heavier. It was not the silence of death anymore. It was the silence before something worse. And Aaron knew deep in his heart that the real war had not yet begun. The night after the battle was restless. Human soldiers gathered in small groups, whispering in low voices, their eyes darting to the shadows as if something unseen moved among them. The aliens' dying words were still alive inside their minds. Some tried to dismiss it as shock or imagination, but no one could truly deny what they had felt. It had not been sound. It had not been air moving through ears. It was something far deeper, something that had cut into their very thoughts. Aaron Hale sat with his back against a burned-out machine, his rifle resting across his knees. He had not spoken since the whisper. His mind repeated it over and over, the strange voice like a cold wind in his chest. The alien had not begged for life. She had not cursed him. She had given him a message that felt older than time itself, and now he could not escape it. The commander called the unit together at dawn. His voice was harsh, but beneath his orders lay a heavy edge of fear. "You will not repeat what happened last night," he said. "You will not spread panic. This is war. Rumors destroy men faster than bullets." He tried to sound strong, but even he could not meet their eyes for long. Yet the rumor had already spread. By the time reinforcements arrived, soldiers from other camps were already whispering about it. Men who had not been there claimed they had felt something in their sleep, a cold dream, a strange pull in their thoughts. Fear traveled faster than fire, and no order could stop it. Aaron overheard two medics arguing as they carried supplies. One said the aliens' words were nothing but a trick, a final attempt to weaken human resolve. The other swore that it had been real, that he had woken in the night and felt her voice pressing against his heart. Others gathered, debating in angry, hushed tones. Was it truth or was it poison? Inside the command tent, leaders tried to make sense of it. Reports came in from distant battlefields. Other soldiers had claimed similar experiences when alien warriors died in their arms. Some described voices. Others spoke of visions. It was not just one alien, not just one event. The whispers were spreading across the war like cracks in glass. Aaron was summoned to give his account. He stood before the officers, his uniform torn, his eyes hollow from lack of sleep. He told them what he had heard, what he had felt, though his words could never fully describe it. The room grew still as he spoke. When he finished, the commander dismissed him, but Aaron could feel the unease clinging to every man in that tent. They had hoped to dismiss it as madness, but his story was the same as so many others. That night, the soldiers marched again, pushing deeper into enemy territory. The ruins of alien fortresses stretched before them, burned walls still glowing with heat. Yet the men did not march with pride. They marched with heavy steps, their minds clouded by the memory of the voice. Even the sound of boots on broken ground felt different, as if each step carried them closer to something waiting in the dark. As they set up camp, Aaron sat near the edge, staring at the stars. His friend Marcus dropped beside him with a sigh. "You heard it too, didn't you?" Marcus whispered. Aaron nodded slowly. "I keep thinking," Marcus said, his hands trembling. "What if we've been fighting the wrong war? What if they weren't trying to kill us? What if they were trying to warn us?" Aaron had thought the same thing, but hearing it aloud sent a chill through him. He did not answer. He only gripped his rifle tighter. Later that night, the wind carried strange sounds across the ruins. Some said it was the cries of wounded aliens still hiding. Others swore it was the voice again, speaking through the shadows. Soldiers who had faced alien fire without fear now refused to sleep alone. They sat in groups, their eyes wide, praying softly or gripping their weapons as if they expected something worse than an attack. The commander grew harsher with each passing hour. He shouted at men to stay focused, to ignore the rumors. But the harder he tried, the more restless they became. War was not only fought with guns and blood. War was fought in the mind. And right now, the human mind was breaking. Aaron could feel it too. The alien's final whisper was not fading. It was growing stronger, like an echo bouncing in a vast unseen chamber. He wondered if it had been meant for him alone, or if every human was cursed to carry it. On the third night, he woke from sleep drenched in sweat. His heart pounded as he looked around, convinced someone had spoken his name. The camp was silent, save for the distant crackle of fires. But then he saw it. Every soldier around him was awake too, their eyes wide, their faces pale. They had all felt it at the same time. The message was no longer a whisper. It was becoming a presence. And though no one spoke the words aloud, every man and woman knew the truth. The war with the aliens had only been a curtain. Something else was waiting behind it. Something far worse. Aaron's stomach twisted as the realization sank in. Humanity had thought it was fighting for survival. But perhaps survival had not even begun. The human army pushed deeper into alien territory, but the land felt empty in a way that chilled their blood. Villages stood abandoned, homes burned, and even the animals had vanished from the forests. It was not the kind of silence that followed defeat. It was the silence of something hiding, waiting, or already gone. Aaron Hale marched with his unit, the sound of boots crunching over dry soil. Every step carried him past ruins that spoke of lives cut short. Walls bore strange marks carved into stone as if in desperation, symbols that looked like warnings, circles and lines that twisted the eye when stared at too long. The commander ordered scouts to search the ruins for supplies and intelligence. Aaron was among them. He walked through what had once been a marketplace. Stalls lay broken, goods scattered across the dirt, but something was wrong. The air felt heavy, as if unseen eyes watched from every shadow. He moved carefully, his weapon raised, his breath slow. Marcus followed close behind. He stopped at a wall and ran his hand over one of the strange carvings. "Look at this," he whispered. The mark seemed to shimmer faintly, though the light was weak. It was not paint. It was not ink. It was burned deep into the stone itself. "What do you think it means?" Aaron asked, his voice low. Marcus shook his head. "I think it means they were afraid of something, afraid enough to leave warnings where anyone could see them." Before Aaron could reply, another soldier called out. They had found journals, alien tablets marked with their language. The commander quickly sent them to translators at base. But even without reading, the fear written in those marks was clear. That night, the whispers grew worse. Soldiers woke screaming, swearing they had seen shadows moving across the sky. Some spoke of hands reaching for them in their dreams. Others claimed they had felt the same cold voice from the battlefield echoing louder, pressing against their skulls. The commander tried to control it, calling meetings to keep order, but even he began to show signs of unease. His eyes grew hollow, his tone sharp and restless. He had been through wars before, but this was different. This was not about supply lines, weapons, or numbers. This was about the mind breaking under a weight no one could name. 2 days later, orders arrived from high command. A squad was to investigate deeper ruins where alien records suggested a temple or fortress had once stood. It was believed the location held answers to the whispers. Aaron and Marcus were among those chosen. The ruins stood at the edge of a vast canyon. The ground split open as if by the hand of a god. Black stone pillars rose into the sky, their surfaces covered with the same twisting symbols seen before. The air was colder here, though no wind blew. Even the light seemed weaker, as if the sun itself feared to shine on the place. As they entered, every soldier felt the weight of silence pressing on their chests. Their voices sounded too loud, their footsteps like thunder. Inside the ruins, they found walls covered in carvings, images of creatures not like the aliens they had fought, nor like humans. The figures were tall, thin, their faces hidden, their hands stretched outward as if reaching into the minds of those below. One soldier muttered a prayer, his voice shaking. Marcus stood frozen, staring at the carvings. "These are not warnings," he said softly. "These are records." Aaron felt a chill crawl down his spine. "Records of what?" "Of something they fought," Marcus replied. "Something they could not defeat." Deeper inside, they found an altar broken in two. Around it lay bones, not alien, not human, but something larger, something unrecognizable. The skulls were long, the teeth sharp, the eye sockets wide. None of them had seen anything like it. Aaron bent down, his hand brushing one of the skulls. For a moment, the world seemed to blur. He saw flashes in his mind, cities burning, skies black with swarms of creatures, voices screaming not in one tongue but in many. He gasped, pulling his hand back, his chest tight. The others looked at him in fear. "What did you see?" Marcus asked. Aaron could barely speak. "Not war. Not like ours. Something worse. Something that consumes." The commander ordered the squad to retreat, his voice trembling for the first time. As they left, the carvings on the walls seemed to shift, the figures almost moving in the dim light. Aaron looked back once, and he swore the eyes of the carved creatures glowed faintly in the dark. When they returned to camp, the translators had finished working on the tablets. The reports confirmed their worst fears. The aliens had not been preparing for war against humans. They had been preparing for survival. For generations, they had hidden from a shadow that came from beyond the stars, a shadow that could enter the mind, twist the heart and leave only silence behind. The soldiers sat in stunned silence as the words were read. Their entire war, all the blood and loss, had been nothing more than a distraction. They had been fighting enemies who were themselves hunted. Aaron stared at the flames of the campfire, his chest heavy. He finally understood the whisper the alien had given him. It had not been about death. It had been about warning, and now humanity knew the truth. But knowing the truth was not comfort. It was terror, because if the shadow was real, then the war they thought they had been fighting was only the surface. The real war was waiting in the dark beyond the stars. The discovery in the ruins spread like wildfire through the ranks. Soldiers who once carried themselves with pride now walked with heavy steps, their eyes full of unease. The truth had cracked something deep inside them. They had fought for years against the alien enemy, spilled blood across worlds, buried brothers and sisters in foreign soil. Yet all along their enemy had not been the true threat. The real danger was something else, something even the aliens feared. Aaron Hale felt the weight of this truth more than most. The alien who had died in his arms had not cursed him. She had chosen him, or perhaps all of them, to carry her secret. Every time he closed his eyes, he could hear her whisper again, cold and sharp, echoing inside his chest. The warning was not fading. It was growing. Command tried to contain the fear, but whispers turned into arguments, and arguments turned into fights. Some soldiers insisted the aliens had tricked them, that the carvings and tablets were lies meant to weaken humanity's resolve. Others said the evidence was undeniable. They argued deep into the night, their voices loud, their hands near their weapons. Unity, once forged in fire, was beginning to fracture. The decision came from high command within days. A meeting would be arranged with alien prisoners. If they knew the truth, then humanity needed answers. The idea of sitting across from sworn enemies filled many with anger, but even anger could not erase the dread pressing on their hearts. Aaron and Marcus were chosen to guard the meeting. They stood at the edge of a dark chamber, their rifles ready, while commanders sat at a long table facing the captured aliens. The prisoners were not weak or broken as soldiers expected. They sat upright, their eyes sharp, as if they had been waiting for this moment. One of them spoke first. Her voice was steady, almost calm. "Now you understand," she said in halting human speech. "The war between us was never the only war." The commander slammed his fist against the table. "Why should we believe anything you say? You've killed our people, burned our cities. You whisper lies into our heads." The alien's gaze did not falter. "Because we have no choice. Because if you do not listen, you will die with us." The room grew silent. Every soldier, every officer felt the weight of her words. Marcus whispered to Aaron, "She's not lying. You can hear it in her voice." Aaron nodded slowly. He could not explain it, but the same feeling gripped him. The alien was not begging for life. She was warning them again. The meeting stretched for hours. The aliens explained what they could. The shadow was not a fleet, not an army. It was something older, something that moved through thought itself. It hunted civilizations until nothing was left but silence. The aliens had fought to stay strong, to keep their people sharp through endless war, but even they knew it was only a delay. Humanity's arrival had been both a curse and a chance. Alone, neither species could survive. Together, perhaps they could stand longer. The commanders bristled at the idea. An alliance with their enemy felt like betrayal. They had buried too many dead to imagine shaking hands with those who had caused it. Yet the shadow loomed larger than hate. Even the most stubborn among them could not deny the cold truth. If the aliens were telling the truth, humanity would soon face a war it could not fight alone. That night, Aaron sat by the fire with Marcus. Around them, soldiers whispered bitterly. Some cursed the thought of fighting beside aliens. Others argued it was the only chance of survival. The camp felt ready to tear itself apart. Marcus stared into the flames. "What if this is what she wanted? The one who died in your arms? Maybe she gave you that message because she knew we couldn't survive without them." Aaron clenched his fists. "Or maybe she cursed us with it. Maybe knowing the truth is worse than dying in battle." But deep inside, he knew Marcus was right. The alien had not spoken to destroy them. She had spoken to prepare them. The next day, orders came down. A fragile truce would be declared. Prisoners would not be executed. Instead, they would be questioned, studied, and possibly even trained beside human soldiers. The announcement was met with rage. Some men shouted in protest, others threatened to desert, yet none dared disobey openly. The shadow had planted fear deep into every soul. Aaron watched as humans and aliens stood near each other for the first time without guns raised. The air between them was heavy, filled with mistrust. Eyes narrowed, hands twitched near weapons. But neither side moved. It was not peace. It was survival. For the first time since the war began, Aaron felt something different from anger or grief. He felt the ground shift beneath him, as if history itself was turning in a new direction. Humanity had not chosen this alliance. Neither had the aliens. It was forced upon them by a terror that cared nothing for their hatred. That night, as Aaron lay awake, the whisper came again. Stronger now, colder, spreading through his bones, he realized something terrible. The alien had not only left them a warning, she had left them a connection. The shadow knew them now. It could feel them. Aaron opened his eyes to the dark sky, his heart racing. The uneasy truce would not be enough. If the shadow truly hunted them, then time was already running out, and humanity's greatest test was about to begin. The uneasy truce between humans and aliens held like glass under pressure. Soldiers marched together but never lowered their weapons. Eyes followed each other with suspicion, hearts heavy with anger and mistrust. It was not friendship. It was survival chained by fear. Yet behind their bitterness, both sides felt the same thing. The whisper had grown stronger. It was no longer fading like a dying echo. It was building, pushing into their minds with every passing night. Aaron Hale felt it most of all. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes, stars burning out one by one, cities swallowed by silence, a shadow stretching across the sky like a hand covering the sun. He woke drenched in sweat, gasping for breath. The alien's last words replaying in his skull as if they had been carved into him. One night, while the camp slept uneasily, alarms shattered the fragile calm. Sensors had picked up movement at the edge of the system. Command rushed to the control tent, soldiers grabbing weapons and scanning the dark skies. At first they expected alien reinforcements, some betrayal to break the truce. But the signals were wrong. The readings were not ships, not armies. They were something else, something vast. The aliens looked more afraid than the humans. Their leader, a scarred warrior named Sarath, stepped forward. "It is here," she whispered. "The shadow has found us." The words struck like knives. The soldiers had dreaded this moment since the whisper began. Now it was real. Aaron stood frozen as orders flew around him. Ships prepared for evacuation. Defenses were armed. But no one truly knew what they were preparing for. The scanners showed movement approaching, not fast like a fleet, but slow and endless, as if the void itself was turning toward them. Days passed with tension wound tighter than steel. Patrols reported strange visions. Men claimed to hear voices calling their names from the dark. Some soldiers collapsed without wounds, their eyes staring blankly as if their souls had been pulled away. Even weapons felt meaningless when faced with something that did not fight with bullets or blades. Then it came. The sky tore open with silence. It was not an explosion, not light, not sound. It was absence itself. A black shape moved against the stars so vast that no one could measure it. It was not a ship. It was not a creature. It was something beyond understanding, a presence that made even the strongest men fall to their knees. Aaron clutched his head as the voice pressed into him, into all of them. It was not one voice, but millions speaking as one. It carried no words, only hunger. Every soldier felt their thoughts shake, their memories tremble, as if the shadow could rip them apart from inside. Sarath, the alien leader, cried out in her tongue, her voice desperate. Her soldiers raised their hands to the sky, chanting old words that sounded like prayers or curses. The humans watched in shock, realizing this was not the first time the aliens had faced it. They had been preparing for this moment for generations. The commander shouted orders, calling for weapons to fire. But when missiles streaked through the sky, they vanished into the darkness, swallowed without sound. The shadow was untouchable. Guns, ships, and bombs meant nothing. Aaron fell to his knees, his chest burning. He felt the whisper change inside him. The dying alien's message was no longer a warning. It was a key. He heard her voice again, clearer than ever, guiding him through the storm inside his head. She had not only told them of the shadow, she had given them a way to stand against it. His vision blurred as he reached for Marcus. "It's in us," Aaron gasped. "That's why she whispered to us. We are the shield." Marcus stared at him in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" Aaron pressed his trembling hands against the ground. She tied it to us, humans. The shadow cannot take what we don't give. We resist it by existing, by fighting in our minds. That's why she chose us. The realization spread like fire. The shadow was not just outside. It was inside. The battle would not be won with machines. It would be fought in thought and willpower, in the refusal to surrender. Humanity's strength had never been its weapons. It had always been its spirit, the stubbornness to endure when everything else broke. The soldiers, human and alien alike, felt it. They rose together, hands gripping weapons not for bullets but for belief. They shouted into the silence, their voices defiant, their hearts refusing to bend. The shadow pressed harder, but for the first time it met resistance. Aaron felt it too. He stood tall, his eyes on the black sky. The alien's last breath had not been a curse. It had been a gift. She had passed her strength into them, bound their minds together against the endless dark. The battle raged in silence, unseen, but felt in every soul. The shadow pushed, but humanity pushed back. And though no one knew how long they could hold, for the first time the shadow trembled. The war that had begun with guns and blood had become something far greater. It was not about territory. It was not about victory. It was about survival of thought, survival of spirit. As the night stretched on, Aaron knew one truth with certainty. The alien had died in his arms. But her secret had given humanity a weapon more powerful than any fleet. And as long as humans could stand together, the shadow would never win without a fight.